www.thegoodgym.com. We're talking the Missouri shooting. This is Lou Moon reporting. Okay, let's play a little game here. You know, there were two separate versions of what happened. One, Mr. Ward that was killed and his people that were with him, and one that the police officer gave. Obviously, it's if what the people that are in Mr. Ward's, that were his witnesses, if what they said was true, I mean, obviously there's a great deal of very clear culpability on the part of the officer, and he should be charged and kicked off the force and so forth. But let's play a little game. Let's just assume that what the police officer said is true. See where that leads us. And then look at what some of the things that law enforcement and the state attorney in that area has done. The police officer said that he came up and to confront or talk with Mr. Ward. It was broad daylight. There was no sign of any altercation being present. There was no unrest. There was no riot going on. There was no ostensible trouble, and no indication that they were investigating any trouble that had been reported. Apparently, he said that he tried to open the door, and Ward slammed the door on him and somehow reached in and was trying to grab his gun. Thereafter, the first shot was fired, and the police officer got out and continued to shoot this fellow and kill him. No indication at all, never an allegation that he was armed. Attempted to show he was armed. He didn't put his little finger under his shirt and say, "I have a gun," to which, of course, the officer would have said, "That's not a gun, that's your finger," like James Earl Jones said in Field of Dreams. Anyway, let's assume that's true. I mean, if that is true, police officer still has a great deal of culpability. He's carrying a gun. He comes up to talk to this fellow, and he wasn't coming up to explain. He wasn't coming up to exchange pleasantries. I think that is very clear. He was coming up to shake him down. He was coming up to have a show of force. He was coming up to intimidate him. One of those things that is what I think you can almost certainly say. Now, you carry a gun, a great deal of responsibility. Whether you're a criminal, whether you're a private citizen that chooses to defend themselves, whether you're in law enforcement or anybody else who may choose to carry a gun. It's a huge responsibility. I've had a gun permit much of my life when I lived in the States, and always within permissible limits. I had a firearm either in my house or in my office, or when permissible in my car when I was traveling from place to place. There's one thing you never want to do that you always have to be wary of when you have a gun. You never want to bring your own death weapon to the party. That's what you never want to do. And so you have to make sure when you have your gun that somehow the gun doesn't topple, fall out of your waistband, or your carry Mexican style in the small of your back or out of your holster. Somebody picks it up and kills you. Somebody that doesn't have so much as a nail clipper on. Anyway, this police officer violated every procedure that you could imagine in allowing somebody to even get close enough to try to grab his gun. Now, he's walking right into the problem. You never do that. You number one, there was no threat to him. Number two, you stay a safe distance away, so that you can draw your gun from a safe distance and give the person the opportunity to submit. In this case, it probably would have been illegal to do that, but far better than killing him. So I think that even if what the police officer said is true, it's still very bad. It's still wrong. It's still culpable. It's still actionable. You should never be on the force again. You should be in jail. But let's look at a couple other things. Not divulging the name of the police officer. I understand they're supposed to do it tomorrow, August 15th. But, I was a lawyer for 20 years in Florida, and, in criminal cases, the trail of evidence grows cold, and sometimes it grows cold very quickly. And as Americans in a free society, which I'm not sure that it is a free society anymore, it's very disturbing, the things that have happened, the erosion of constitutional rights, the blatant ignoring of the Constitution by state, local, and federal governments and law enforcement agencies, which themselves are out of control greatly. So the person has a right to be able to commence his independent investigation, to assemble facts and evidence relating perhaps to a civil suit, perhaps to just clearing the victim, in this case Mr. Ward's name. and he has thus far been precluded from that. And regardless of whether or not they do make good on their promise to release the name on August 15th, there's been prejudice already to him and his family, his loved ones. And there's been prejudice to any action, civil or federal civil rights action that he may have. And I think it's very, very sad, and it's very wrong, and something has to be done about it. The Department of Justice has to take some very clear steps. The second thing is that since they haven't yet disclosed the name of the witness, you get your most accurate witness statements the closer in time you are able to secure the statement to the incident that occurred. And what happens when you've had this lag time here is there is a flavor on this whole situation that there is the opportunity for law enforcement to round up these fellows, these people that are potential witnesses. I mean, they know this police officer. There's a file on him for sure. And try to shape what they are ultimately going to say. And I think that is very chilling. The propensity or the likelihood or the danger that there will be witness tampering is, I think, very great. And really, if you look at it and you look at the history of law enforcement, there's been a code of silence, this type of thing, that it begs the question that maybe that is what is going on. And it's wrong anyway. The other thing is the rationale, this is kind of the final point, the rationale that they didn't disclose the name of the police officer because he might be in danger. Wow, that's very horrible. I feel bad for him. But let me tell you, if it was the other way around and Mr. Ward had shot the police officer, do you think it would be fair if the police officer or the police force, the people that are on the force, were not allowed to know Mr. Ward's name? Do you think that would ever happen? That would never happen, even though Mr. Ward, had he been the one that had caused harm to a police officer, would have been an extreme amount of danger. So in closing, it's a bad situation. And America has a lot of problems to work out with their race relations, with their criminal procedure, and with the erosion of rights of the American people. Fortunately for the government and for state, local, and federal law enforcement agencies and so forth, and governments, Americans really don't know their rights because we don't teach them that anymore. We don't teach them that in American civics. So that's my take on the Missouri shooting. And next up, we'll have another video on the Tony Stewart issue. Visit me at www.thegoodgym.com. We're reformatting that site into in addition to comedy, social commentary on current events and so forth. A biento. See you later. Bye-bye.